back to my channel. So in today's video I am finally introducing my baby boy. He's actually 6 weeks old tomorrow, so this has took way longer than anticipated, but I am going to be just going through kind of like my birth story, how obviously the first kind of week went, things like that. And I've also got a bit of a Q&A bit. I asked if anyone had any questions on my Instagram, so I'm going to be going through those. But I would like to introduce my gorgeous baby boy. I'm absolutely obsessed with him. So this is baby Saint. You want to say hi? Say hi. I can't even believe he's at the edge. He's got shoes on. Say hi. Oh, he's just trumping. Yes, so this is baby Saint. He is an absolute dream and living up to his name. I am so proud of him and how he's been, and I'm so proud of Orbin. He's been absolutely incredible with him, my eldest son. But I'm going to go through my birth story, and then I'm going to go through and answer some of your guys' questions that you asked me on Instagram. So let's just get into it. So if you want to hear about my birth story, how I gave birth to my second baby, and all that jazz, then please keep watching. Okay, so first of all, I would definitely get a cuppa at the ready if you haven't already. Get yourself a nice drink, some snacks, something like that, because it's probably going to be a long one. Hi, baby. So this is obviously my second baby. I've also got a 4-year-old little boy. Well, I say he's 4. He's 4 in May. So he's almost 4-year-old little boy. So it's been obviously a minute since I last gave birth. And to be honest, my experience this time around was fairly similar to my first son. Apart from with my first baby I got induced and this time I didn't. That was one of the things I was quite nervous about, being honest, because obviously getting induced, you know when you're going into labour, obviously you kind of get a date, you go in, you know, get started off and things like that, and it just progresses naturally on there. Whereas for me, I was thinking, oh my god, like, am I going to know the signs of going into labour? Like, where am I going to be when my waters go? Like, all that stuff. So, basically, cutting a long story short, when I was at 39 weeks, I ended up getting a sweep. Reason being is just basically I was having a lot of tightenings, I was having a lot of like pain down there, and I was basically just having like quite a lot of symptoms of early labour anyway. So my midwife just said, you know, look, we normally wait till 40 weeks, but that's normally if you're not showing any signs of labour. We could always try, because I had an appointment coming up with her. She said, why not just try for your sweep at 39 weeks and we'll just see, you know, what's what. So basically, that day, so this was, I was 39 weeks, so this was the 23rd of February. You okay, Papa? So it was the 23rd of February. I went into my normal midwife appointment, obviously went for my birthing plan, things like that again, and she gave me a sweep. So on my sweep, she said that I was 1 centimetre when she first, if this is a bit TMI for some people, it's going to get gory. Going to be talk about blood, just like a disclaimer, there's going to be talk about blood. Obviously, there's going to be talk about women's stuff, stitches, etc, etc. So if you don't want to hear about that, please just obviously switch off the video, because, you know, it's not obviously everyone's taste. So basically, I went in obviously for my sweep, and she said that I was already 1 centimetre, which was fab. And she said that my cervix was really soft. She could feel baby's head, so she could feel Saint's head just literally by putting her hand in there, which is mad. So yeah, so she was really excited. She said, you know what, I think this could really work for you. So by the time she'd done my sweep and things like that, she sent me away. She said I was 2 to 3 centimetres by the end of it. So she gave me a good old sweep around there, sent me away with being obviously 2 to 3 centimetres dilated. So I was really excited. I was thinking, oh, this is going to be it. Like, I'm going to go into labour. How exciting. So I basically went home and I cleaned the house like there's no tomorrow. My sister had Orbin and Michael was at work, and you know when you just think, do you know what, I'm just going to go home, I've got a feeling he's going to come. So yeah, so I thought, I've got a feeling he's going to come, I just know it's going to be today, or tomorrow, what, you know, at the time. So I went home, I cleaned all the bathrooms, I cleaned, you know, I put fresh bedding on the next to me cot. I give Saint's room a clean, I like tidied all the downstairs and everything, and I did like a little time lapse on Instagram actually, and everyone was like, Amy, sit down. But obviously I'd started having like tightenings from the sweep. So obviously when I'd come home, as I was cleaning, I felt like the more I was on the go and things like that, the more that the tightenings were getting stronger. So it got to the point I walked up to my sister's, because she just lives around the corner from me, to get Auburn, and oof, just bopped on the head. I walked up to my sister's to get Auburn from her house, and it was to the point where this had gone, like a few hours had gone by, and it was to the point where I was having to like stop, like in the middle of talking. I was like stopping, like do my breathing and things like that, talking again, but I was still like able to laugh through it. I was like, oh my god, is this it? Because obviously again, I still didn't really know what to expect or how it would feel going into labour naturally. So that went on, basically that was the story for that day. Yeah, so that carried on throughout the day. I was just having like tightenings in my stomach, not like dead painful, but they were getting to the point where I was having to like stop and breathe through them. And then it got to about 7:30 on the evening, so I'd had my sweep about 1 o'clock. So it got to about 7:30 in the evening, and it was at this point I was putting obviously Auburn to bed, turning down for the night, starting to relax and stuff like that. I took my last picture on Instagram, which I'll post here, because again I just had a feeling it was going to be my last baby bump photo. And then the contractions completely stopped, so I was devastated. So I'd put Auburn to bed, I'd got into bed, and I do truly believe that because I'd stopped and relaxed, my body had relaxed as well. So yeah, so they stopped, so I was like, oh brilliant, so all that for nothing. So basically I'd went to bed, you know, whatever, and then it got to about 2 o'clock in the morning. Auburn woke me up crying, wanted to come in our bed, so he came in our bed, and then literally about half an hour after that I started getting like tightenings again, and they weren't like excruciating, but they were to the point where I was thinking, oh, these are getting like quite strong. So I was basically laid in bed here, Auburn's in the middle, Michael's obviously at the other side, and that went on for about like an hour and a half, and at this point I was like holding Michael's hand behind Auburn's head, and I'm like squeezing Michael's hand through the contractions and stuff, but they weren't like too close together. I was having like a little breather in between, and then it got to about, I want to say I laid there from, it was about 3 till about 5, and I just thought, do you know what, I'm just going to get up, like these are like obviously affecting my sleep, I can't sleep through them anymore, so I'm just going to go downstairs. These two are still asleep, so I basically went downstairs on my ball, started bouncing on my ball, thinking, right, this might be it. So I had like a little snack, I had like plenty of water, I got my combs with me, and things like that, because I'd heard so many amazing stories about combs. So I just had 2 normal combs. I know you can get like a proper birthing one, but I just had 2 normal combs with me. So I'm bouncing on my ball, I'm squeezing my combs and things like that. And then it was about 5:30, I went to the toilet just for a wee. And then when I wiped, I seen that my mucus plug came away. So that was on the tissue, and I was like, oh my god, like this is it, like, oh, it's happening. So at that point I texted my mum as well, and I was like, Mum, what do I do, like this has happened. And she was like, right, ring your midwife. So I rang her, maybe it was about like half an hour later, just explained, you know, the situation and things like that, and she basically just said, you know, just stay at home as long as you can, you know, get plenty of rest and stuff like that if you can. Obviously your mucus plug could mean that you're going into labour now, or it could mean, you know, a couple of days, like whatever. So, you know, there wasn't much like rush at that point to get me to hospital or anything, so I thought, okay, no worries, I'll just stay where I am. So then I went to wake Michael up, I think it was about 6 o'clock, because I was thinking, right, like I need him to be awake now, like I'm excited, I'm nervous, I'm scared, I'm in pain. So he came down, and then about 10 minutes later Auburn realised no one was in the bed with him, and he came down. So I'm just bouncing along on my ball for like a couple of hours now went by, and obviously poor Auburn did see me like squeezing my combs throughout the pain. I had a bath within that time, I nipped in the bath, and tried to like, you know, control my contractions more in there. I took some paracetamol, and I was trying to get a bit of sleep, because obviously I'd been up all night. I didn't know how long this was going to last, because with Auburn, my eldest, my labour went on for like 2 days, so I was trying to get as much sleep as I could, even if there were little cat naps, knowing that it could go on for a while, and I wanted energy when I was ready to push him out. So yeah, so I had a bath, I had a little nap here and there, And then I started timing my contractions, and they were coming like, you know, 3 every 10 minutes, like within every 10 minutes there was at least 3, and they were lasting quite a while as well. So it was at this point, then it got to, I want to say it was about 1:30, so I'd basically just laboured at home for those few hours, bouncing on my ball, squeezing my combs, obviously drinking my water, having a bath, having a nap, And then it got to about 1:30 and I went to the toilet again, and at this point when I wiped there was blood on the tissue. So it wasn't anything crazy at this point, it was just like a bit of like, I didn't know if it was just the rest of the mucus plug or whatever. So I thought, I didn't really think anything of that. But I did ring my midwife and I told her, and they just said to basically gauge it myself, like if I was concerned about the amount of blood and it was something unusual. You're a little stretch, you want your shoes off. Just not long got back home and started filming this, take the shoes off. So yeah, so she basically just told me to like obviously keep an eye on it, and if I got concerned to go through to the hospital where I was giving birth. So about an hour went by after that again. I put a pad on, and then I went to the toilet again, and there was like another like load of blood, like again as if I was on my period. So I said at this point, you know, my contractions were getting stronger. They were coming like really frequently, there was blood, so I thought, right, I think it's time to go to the hospital. So we took Auburn to my sister's, well Michael did, dropped her off, I dropped him off, I got the rest of my stuff organised and things like that, and then Michael went to pick up my mum and we all went through to the hospital. So once we arrived at the hospital, we went to, they told me just to go into like the walk-in area. So I was stood, and at this point it was like even walking from like the car to the hospital, I kept on having to stop, and I was just like, my head was in Michael's chest and I was just squeezing his hands, squeezing my combs, and then it would go off and I was like walking again. It's so funny. So then I went obviously to like the reception area, and there was a big queue, so I'm stood like about 4 people behind, and obviously the woman could see me through, and I was like having contractions, so she kind of shouted me through and she was like, are you okay, are you having contractions? And I said, oh yeah. And obviously I think by the look on my face she was like, you need to go up to the labour ward. So she didn't even see me on like the ward, like the normal ward or in the rooms or anything like that. She sent me straight up to the labour ward, got me in a room. So I went into a room, and then my lovely midwife who delivered Saint obviously came to check me and things like that. And by this point I was 4 centimetres. So obviously I was a bit disappointed because I was thinking, you know, yesterday I was only 2 to 3, I was 2 to 3 from my sweep, and now I'm only like 1 centimetre more. So I was a bit confused. Obviously the whole labour was progressing and things like that, but I wasn't disheartened. I thought, at least I'm 4, so I'm in active labour, so obviously we were all allowed to stay and stuff like that. But obviously I did explain to her that there was quite a bit of blood. So she told me to go to the toilet. She wanted to check, obviously I had to do like a wee in like a cardboard boat, what would you call it, like a bedpan. So I did a wee in there, and obviously she could see like the blood in there and stuff like that, and I showed her my pad and things like that, and she said, you know, she was a little bit concerned about it. So the plan was to break my waters, and we wanted to check that you know, the waters around baby Saint were clear, and that like basically the blood was coming from me and not from him. So she broke my waters, and honestly it took like 1 second. She said they were basically just like bulging. She said, like, you know, I could have probably stood up and gravity would have just gone anyway, which was such a good experience, because with Auburn and getting induced, when they broke my waters it took forever. She could not break them. I was in agony, I was crawling up the bed, I was on gas and air, and things like that. So when she popped them I was so shocked. She was like, yep, there we go, popped. So that was really good, and the waters were more or less clear. There was a little bit of blood in there, but she said she was happy with them. Baby was happy, you know, he was happy as Larry in there and things, so we decided to just obviously carry on as normal. So it was at this point, obviously my contractions were really strong. This was my 2nd labour, and I had an epidural with Auburn, because obviously I'd been in labour for like 2 days with him, and it had just breaking my waters with him, it pushed me over the edge. So I just had that feeling it was going to happen again. So I just thought, do you know what, why basically why torture myself with this amount of pain when I know that the epidural last time made the birth so beautiful for me. So I asked for an epidural again at that point, and she said, yeah, go and get it sorted. So about 45 minutes went by and the anaesthetist came in. It was a lady one at this point, so she tried to get my epidural in. So I'm sat there, she's obviously, I'm like leant forward, I'm having contractions and stuff like that, and she could not get this epidural in, so she kept on putting it in, and I was getting this like shooting pain down my leg, and like pain in my back, and she was like, are you sure it's not just a contraction? And I was like, no. Like as soon as I felt her like push it, I was like, no, like responding to it. So obviously I was panicking, I'm like looking up, I could see Michael and my mum just like staring like, oh my god, what is going on? So she took it out and she tried again, the same thing happened. I was like, no, I can feel it's hurting. And I knew that that was different because obviously the first time I had an epidural, I didn't feel a thing. So she was like, right, I think it's just because my contractions were so strong. She said that your back's like tensing up, so it's hard for me to get it in the right spot. So she then rang her colleague, because you can only, anaesthetist can only try 2 attempts. And then somebody else would have to try, and obviously if they can't get it in, they can't get it in. So I was thinking, please Lord, just get this epidural in me. So anyway, the person that came the second time was the same person who did it when I had Auburn, so I was over the moon to see him. I was like, thank the Lord. So he changed my full position on the bed, things like that. He didn't get it in the first time, but he did get it in the second time, so thank you Lord for that. Sorry, Michael just interrupted up there. So yeah, so he got it in, so it was amazing. So I thought, yes, finally, like, let this set in and then I'll be out of pain. And obviously at this point I'm still only 4 centimetres, so I didn't know how long it would take for me to get to 10 centimetres. So now it's, what time is it now? So by this point I got there, my memory now. So I think I got to the hospital, I think my timings are a bit off here. So basically I got to the hospital about 1:30. Yeah, I got to the hospital about 1:30 because by the time all this had happened, it was about 2:45-ish. So it happened quite quickly. And she said basically just sit, chill, relax now. Obviously I'd had my epidural, my contractions were coming like thick and strong, so she was happy with them, my waters had gone, so now it was just a case of keeping an eye on baby and just progressing naturally. So she said basically I'll check you again in 4 hours. So cutting a long story short, obviously 4 hours went by, and it was at this point there was a little bit, a little drop in Saint's heartbeat within that 4 hours time that she wasn't too happy about, but it did peak back up. So she was like, right, okay, I wasn't happy with that, but I'm just going to keep an eye on him, and he's been fine ever since. So we didn't think anything of it. So I'll just lay him down because he's asleep. Okay, so he's just laid in here now. So yeah, so it got to about 6 o'clock and she thought, right, I'm going to check you again. And she was so excited. She was like, I know you're going to be at 10 centimetres, like, it's a no-brainer, your contractions are thick and strong, your waters had more or less gone on their own. She was really excited to obviously check me, and she knew that I recognised the feeling since having an epidural the first time around of pressure. So she did keep asking me, are you sure you can't feel any pressure down there? Sure you can't feel any pressure? And I couldn't feel any pressure whatsoever. So I was thinking, I don't know why, if I am 10 centimetres, I don't know why I'm not feeling him. So anyway, she was like, right, this is it, let's get you checked. So obviously this is at about 6:30. So she checks me, I'm still 4 centimetres. So obviously 4 hours had gone by, my contractions were coming thick and strong, all the signs were there, and I just was not dilating. And she was like, she literally was so confused. She was like, I don't understand how you're not 10 centimetres or how you're not at least like, you know, 7, 8, 9 centimetres. So obviously I was a little bit deflated at this point. I was like, you are joking me. So she was like, right, okay, let me just have a feel and see what's what. So she had a feel and things like that, and we discovered he was back to back, so he was stuck. So we were like, right, okay. So he wasn't happy in that position because as she was checking me, obviously he'd already had a dip in his heartbeat at one point, which she didn't like, but then he'd obviously peaked back up and it was fine. And then this time around, his heartbeat dropped again. So So at this, is that funny, is it? Doing little sleepy giggles. So yeah, so I can't remember, did she put me on the drip before or after? Yeah, so she put me on the drip, so obviously we realised he was back to back, and at this point she said, right, I'm going to put you in the hormone drip. Obviously I had that with Auburn as well, and it basically just amplifies your contractions, gets your body going even stronger and things like that. Obviously I'd already had the epidural, so I couldn't feel it any different in terms of pain. So she put the drip in me and then waited about, I want to say about 20 minutes. So obviously now it had gone from 6:30, so it's now about, I want to say about 7 o'clock-ish. So sorry if this is confusing you guys, trying to remember all like the timings and things. So about 20 minutes had gone by anyway from her check-in, seeing he was back to back. I was still only 4 centimetres, and she gave me the hormone drip. Then about 20 minutes went by, and his heart rate dipped again. So she said, right, I'm not happy about his heart rate. So obviously everything changed. She said, I'm really sorry, I don't want to worry or anything like that, but I'm going to have to press the buzzer. So obviously everyone worries in that situation. As soon as someone says to you, don't worry, but obviously you instantly worry. So she pressed the buzzer on the wall. About 8 doctors come running in. Midwives, doctors, the lights went on. My legs are in stirrups. I was like, what is going on? And she basically just explained, like, obviously we're not happy about his heart rate, we need to see where we're at and things like that. So this lovely doctor examined me again. She was like, right, let me feel. She was like, oh, well, brilliant, you've already gone from 4 to 7 centimetres. So now I'm 7 centimetres. I'd gone from 4 to 7 in 20 minutes with the hormone drip. So she was like, brilliant. So she said, what we're going to do, because obviously they knew they needed to get him out at this point, and either I was going to progress naturally quickly or it was going to be a cesarean. So she basically give me like another sweep. So while her hand was in there, don't ask me how she did this, but she was just like, right, I'm going to move as much as I can out the way. So she basically said, right, you're at 7 from her doing like the sweep. And then she basically must have held my cervix or something. I'm not too sure how it works, but she said, right, Amy, just give me, if you can, she said, I'm going to try something, just give me a push, like as hard as you can. So her hand was in there, I pushed and she pulled, and then she said, right, there you go, you're 10 centimetres, let's get baby out. And I literally was like, what on earth? Obviously I'd gone from 4 centimetres to 10 centimetres now within like 25 minutes, so it was wild. So obviously now we needed to get sent out. So basically at this point it was like so quick. The same happened with Auburn. My labours have always been like a bit longer, but then once I'm at 10 centimetres with both of them, it just takes like a few pushes and out. So obviously she was like, right, get baby out. So they put my legs in obviously the stirrups and things like that, and these 2 midwives were absolutely lovely, encouraging me. So I was pushing, and he literally came out within 3 pushes. It's like 3 contractions. So I just remember at the 2nd contraction his head was out and I could feel it. I think because this time I forgot to mention as well that my epidural was travelling up too high, so they did have to stop me pressing the button, and I had to let it wear down a little bit, because obviously if the epidural goes too high it can affect like your breathing and your chest and your lungs and stuff. So I think because I hadn't pressed my button on my epidural for a couple of hours, I could feel more, which to be honest it wasn't like pain. I couldn't feel pain, but I could feel a lot more than I did with Auburn. So when his head was there, I could totally feel that his head was there, and I think for that reason I just did not stop pushing. Like even when my contractions were stopping, I was still like, ah, getting this baby out, to the point where Michael was like, Amy, you need to breathe, babe, like breathe through it, and I was like, no, I don't want to breathe through it, like I'm just pushing, like I wasn't saying a word, I was just literally just like this. And obviously the 2nd one, I seen his head, I seen all that hair, and I was just like, oh my god, I just need this baby on me. So obviously the 3rd one, got him out, put him on my chest, and literally just the feeling of just sheer like overwhelming emotion. I literally cried like a baby. I was just like so emotional, brought all the feelings back I had for Auburn. But for some reason this time I just felt a lot more, I feel like Auburn, it was a mixture. Obviously it was my first baby, I was like overwhelmed, but I was also like in shock, I think, because obviously it was the first time I'd had a baby, first time I'd went through labour. It was quite a long traumatic experience with Auburn. So this time I feel like I just had this like just chilled out, just raw emotion. So it was beautiful. So obviously I had him, he was in my arms, he was healthy, he was lovely. I mean, you're gorgeous. And he was a whole pound heavier than Aubin, which I did feel he was like a little sausage on me. Like I could feel him like so heavy compared to obviously how Aubin was. So Aubin was £6.10 when he was born, and Saint was £7.9. So yeah, so that's basically how he was born. It was a really lovely experience, if I'm honest. Like, yes, the blood situation was scary. There was a lot of bleeding. Just being honest, throughout my whole labour, they kept on having to change my bed sheets. So much blood was coming away. I literally felt like I was wetting myself all the time. There was that much blood, which we were concerned about. But to this day, we don't really know why I was bleeding so much. It just kind of, as long as the baby was happy, I was okay, then it just kind of was what it was type of thing. So, you know, nothing really happened about that. But yeah, so obviously then we've had the baby. I made Michael do, well, I didn't make him, but I encouraged him, because with Aubin I think he was a bit like shy and things like that, so we didn't do skin to skin. So this time I really wanted him to do skin to skin with Saint, because I just feel like it's such a beautiful feeling. They come out, they're all warm, they're gooey, you have that first little like skin to skin connection. I think it's really important. So Michael took his top off, did a bit of skin to skin, sat and held him. And I did have a second degree tear, I think, from shooting that baby out as quick as you can imagine. I did tear, so obviously I had to have some stitches and things like that. And poor Saint come out with a bloodshot eye, a bruise across his nose, and she said basically because in like the birth canal he'd obviously like span round from being back to back, probably whacked his face off something coming out, and then shot out. The pressure made his eyes bloodshot, so they were bloodshot for the first like week or two of him being born. Obviously I couldn't move my neck for like the first like week after giving birth as well, which I was really nervous about. I thought something had gone wrong in the epidural. So yeah, they were basically the side effects. So obviously I did have a tear, so I had some stitches and things like that, but honestly I wouldn't like, for me personally, I've tore twice. So the first time she cut me because obviously she knew I was going to tear, and the second time it was just too quick. I just pushed him out too quick. And both time I've been petrified to like go to the toilet or anything after stitches, and to be honest, touch wood, both times it hasn't stung me, it hasn't hurt. Obviously it's a bit uncomfortable, and I did get up and be more active this time. Obviously I've got a toddler to run around after as well, so there's not much like rest time for me this time. So I did find that my stitches were pulling a lot more this time. So just basically, if you're in that situation, just listen to your body, and then, you know, if you need to rest, rest. But that was my recovery was like so simple for me. I felt like myself straight away this time. Again with Aubin I was very anxious. I was totally worried. It was so scary to me being a first time mum, whereas I feel like this time with Saint, I've just took to it like a duck to water. Like for some reason this time a lot more confident, a lot more kind of in control, and I think that's just with him being such a chill baby as well. As you can see, like he's just no bother. He's literally like this all day. He only cries when he's hungry and stuff, so yeah, I couldn't be more lucky. Aubin's been absolutely incredible with him, and I just feel so blessed. Like, so I've basically been in this massive newborn bubble where I've been wanting to do this video, but obviously just trying to find the time and stuff like that just hasn't been ideal. So anyway, with that being said, that was kind of like my birth story. If I've missed anything, I'm so sorry. I'll leave it in the comments. But I am going to go through now and answer some questions for you guys. So if you want to see that part as well, please keep watching. Okay, so first question, I do get this question a lot, is how do you look so put together, and how do you manage to juggle everything? So honestly, I just feel like I'm just super blessed in terms of my children being able to like entertain themselves. I feel like from having Aubin, as much as obviously he's my best friend, I literally like play with him all the time, things like that, he also is very good at like entertaining himself, and kind of, you know, I learned him at a young age to self-soothe and things like that, so he's not scared of playing on his own and, you know, things like that, so I can get things done around the house. And basically Saint's being the same. He's happy if I just pop him down like this. I can potter around, I can carry this. Docker is quite good as well, because I can carry it around the house wherever I'm going, room to room, and he's happy being chilled in there. So I honestly think it's just because first time around with Aubin, I wasn't this chilled. Unfortunately back then I wasn't like as active as I am on social media now, so I didn't really record like that part of my life. But with Auburn I was definitely more anxious. You know, slept like, was around in my PJs a lot more. I felt like I couldn't put him down as much. I was always holding him. He was very unsettled. He had reflux. He was doing this startling thing that was almost like fitting. So first time around was definitely different to this time around. So I will just say that, you know, every person's different. Every person, you know, deals with pregnancy differently. Everyone feels different post-pregnancy, so you know, you can't control your hormones and things like that. So if you are feeling more like emotional and you haven't got it in you to get up and get ready that day, and you haven't got it in you to do the cleaning and then that's fine. Like, just know that it will get easier. Like, that's exactly how I was more with Auburn first time around, whereas this time I just feel like myself instantly again. I don't know how or why it feels different. My hormones have just been so good to me this time, and allowed me to just feel like myself a lot sooner. So I think, obviously, I don't know if it would happen if I had a third baby, how I would feel, but I'm just kind of riding that wave. And I think on top of that, because I've already got one baby, I'm saying that he's not a baby, he's nearly 4, but he's my baby. Because I've already got him, I'm so used to being like up on the go, like out of the house for nursery, you know, I work quite like a lot on my social media, and I'm self-employed and so I'm used to kind of like being up and active and on the go all the time. So I think that's probably just why I've kind of just like continued as I am, except now I've got another baby there in the mix. So like you say, because he's so chilled, he's basically just slotted in like a dream. So that's basically how I juggle everything. But some days are different to others. Some days I get up, I get ready, I'm out, I'm doing all sorts. Other days I just want to chill, don't wear makeup, don't, you know, stay in my pyjamas all day. You know, who cares at the end of the day? Do whatever makes you happy. When you're a mum, you know, life is hard and life is crazy. So if you don't fancy getting ready that day, don't get ready. No one is judging you, at least there shouldn't be. So are you waking staying up in the night for feeds? No, he's very good at waking himself up. I just believe that, well, obviously where he's at now, I think, you know, as long as your baby's gaining weight, as long as your baby's happy, healthy, obviously you're having your health visitor checks, your midwife checks, whatever, as long as your baby is happy and gaining weight, for me personally, I've never felt the need to wake them up and be like, right, you need to feed again. He's just been quite good at kind of waking himself up when he's hungry, which happens to be, at the beginning was every like hour and a half to 2 hours. Now it's more like he can go sometimes 4 hours and then wake up for a feed, or we've even got the odd 5-hour window on a night time. So he's just very good at kind of waking up when he's hungry, necking his bottle and then going back to sleep, which, you know, it wasn't like that in the beginning, don't get me wrong. It was like every hour, and obviously that's including like the feed time. So he might wake up at 4, and then it would be like, by the time I fed him was like, you know, maybe 20 past 4:30, then he might wake again at like 5:15. That's what it was like in the beginning. But now obviously he's doing a lot better, and a lot like longer stretches and more milk, which is good. Next question, where did Auburn stay when you were in hospital? Has he ever slept out before this? So Auburn stayed at my sister's, and yes, he does actually sleep out every week, well, more or less every week. My sister started this when she had her 3 children before I'd even had kids. You know, my nieces and nephews would go to my mum's on a Friday, and they would just have their like date night or whatever, and it did take me a while to let Auburn stay at my mum's, especially every week, but obviously he adores his cousins. Him and my niece Harper are like a year apart, so obviously he was begging me to go, to the point where I was like, Mum, I want to go, and I had to just let him. So yes, he's very used to sleeping out and stuff like that. So he stayed at my sister's, which, to be honest, he's only stayed at my sister's once or twice. He's never, that's not where he sleeps every week. It's normally my mum's, so I think that was a bit strange for him. I think the biggest thing as well, I don't know if this is a question, but if you do have another sibling and you want to introduce them to baby once he's born, obviously I was super excited for Auburn to meet Saint, that I didn't think about the time. I didn't think of how Auburn might feel seeing me in hospital or anything like that. So by the time he got to the hospital to meet Saint, it was about 9:30 at night. Obviously he was tired, he was emotional. The first thing he said when he came in, it was like, bless him, he literally just said, Mummy, what has the doctors done to you? Like, obviously I'm laid on the bed, I had the thing still in the back of my hand, so she did take away obviously all like the bloodstained sheets, everything like that, as much as she could to make it look less like a massacre took place. But obviously there was still signs that obviously Mummy had been in hospital, so that definitely freaked Orban out. So he was a bit like, as much as he wanted to meet Sid and it was beautiful, he was more concerned about me in that moment. So in hindsight, I wish I just waited till we brought him home to meet Orban in his own environment. It'd be a lot more calmer, peaceful, and I could have just stayed with him then. Because obviously then when my sister went, you know, we've got to go now, by the time it was time for me to go on the ward, he literally broke down crying. He was hysterical. It was like, Mummy, I want you, I want you, I want you. Obviously I couldn't leave. I couldn't walk. I didn't have epidurals, so I couldn't even get off the bed to satisfy him. So yeah, that broke my heart seeing him like that. So my recommendation to you guys is, if you can't go home when your baby comes to when your firstborn comes to the hospital, personally I would just wait till you go home with them, because it'll be a lot less traumatic for them. What's your baby's sleep like at night? How often are you waking up? So since obviously just turning 6 weeks, and he wakes up, he normally has his last bottle about 9:30, 10. He'll wake up about 1:30, 2, have a bottle. And then sometimes he wakes up at like 3, I don't know why, between 3 and 4. Sometimes he'll go through to like 5:30, and that tends to be like his night routine at the minute. So we're trying to just get that stretch from the 2 o'clock one to like, you know, 6, 5:30 would be ideal. And so we're working on that, but he's doing really well. So it's obviously some nights are better than others. Some nights he's a bit more unsettled, some nights he's not. But yeah, that's like his sleep pattern. About having an injection before delivering the placenta, did you have this? Yes, so I did have the injection. Obviously at that point for me, I'm just kind of like, I just want to get the placenta out, I just want to be over and done with labour. So I had it with Orban, and my placenta came away really quickly. This time it took about half an hour, which was strange. She kept on having to like massage my tummy. But saying that, my placenta was bloody huge this time. It was literally like a second child. Like she had to literally pull the bugger out. So maybe that's why it was just quite a big placenta. But yeah, I did have the injection and I was absolutely fine with it. It basically just speeds it up and gets obviously out there quicker. Will you have more babies? So obviously I like to never say never. Obviously I'm more than happy and blessed with the 2 babies that I've got. But there's something inside of me that just tells me that this isn't my last baby. I've just got a feeling inside of me. I've always said 2, so I don't know why I'm feeling like that. I think just because I've been so chilled this time and just like so settled, that I just think, what's one more? So obviously it depends. Obviously if we're lucky enough to have a 3rd one, if Michael gets on board and wants to have a 3rd one, because he's still a bit like, I don't know, I'm happy with 2. So we'll see. Never say never. We'll never know what the future holds. Tips for prepping everything upstairs for nighttime feeds and bringing down everything the next morning. So I have these little nappy caddies, which I'm sure you've seen everywhere. So I literally just have wipes, nappies, muslin cloths, a baby grow, a vest, things like that in here. And I just keep this beside my bed. So that's obviously everything that I need in terms of night feeds. And then obviously we have a prep machine downstairs. So basically what happens on a night time for us is I'll wake Michael up. So basically Saint wakes me up, he's next to me. I'll like soothe him, maybe change his nappy if it's wet, things like that. Michael normally goes down to make the bottle, and then most of the time I'll do the night feed. Obviously if I'm super tired and stuff like that, Michael will do the night feed. He's quite good. I can, you know, say to him, sometimes he just does it off his own accord. It's like no bother to him to do the night feeds as well. So we basically just share the load, but that's normally the case. I stay up here, settle Saint when he's obviously hungry. Michael goes down, make the bottle, then one of us will feed him, get him back down. So I don't bring like the prep machine upstairs or anything like that. I just, obviously that just works for us. Must have products etc. for after birth. So after birth for me, those nappy pant things the first day were handy. I had them quite a bit with Orban as well, for the first like few days, when obviously you're bleeding quite a lot's coming away, which is totally normal, totally natural. It's basically like a nappy for an adult, let's just be honest. But they're basically like pants. You just pull them up, pull your knickers over the top, big pants. So basically big pants, as in like knickers, nappies, like adult nappies, which you can get just from like Asda, Home Bargains or whatever. One of them oh, I forgot what they're called. It's like a bottle that you squeeze. I'll leave a little picture. It's a bottle that you squeeze. I absolutely love that thing. I basically used that every time I went to the toilet, not because I was stinging, but just to keep clean in that area, because obviously when you've had stitches and stuff, you can't be going in washing with soap and things like that, so you just got to use water. So I just felt like I felt extra clean, that every time I went to the toilet I was basically giving it a little shower down there. So I just basically filled it with like lukewarm water, give it a little spritz, it was all nice and clean. So that I absolutely swore by. If you are stinging or anything, Spritz for Bits by Expert Midwife was really good as well. I spritzed that down there. But other than that, I don't think there was anything that I really like used in particular. The Expert Midwife bath salts, I used those a little bit as well after the first like week. But other than that, it was basically just, I then moved on to like big pads instead of the nappies, because the only thing is with the nappies is if you go to the toilet, it's so obviously easier to just remove a pad and put a new one versus taking all your trousers off, taking your nappy off, putting a new one on, things like that. So once obviously like it had calmed down a bit down there, I just moved to like big pads with knickers. But yeah, just comfy clothes, one of those squeezy bottles, your if you have had stitches, sometimes a nice pillow to sit on so that you're not sat on like too much of a flat surface. But yeah, so they're what I basically used with Sid. How long was your labour? I feel like I talked through that quite enough in my sleep routine for Sid. We're on quite like a easy going sleep routine at the minute, so obviously I've told you roughly like when his bottle times are. So before that I'll either bath him and Auburn, so I'll put them both in together now. So I basically just fill it up. Auburn's happy to just splash around like a tiny bit of water, bless him. He just loves being with Sin. He's the best big brother. So I just put a little bit of like obviously warm water in there, lay Sin in his little bath seat. Auburn splashes around at the bottom, bath them both. I tend to take them both into Auburn's room if I'm bathing them both at the same time. Get them both ready in there. Saint will stay in there while we do story time with Auburn most nights, unless he's a bit unsettled, then Michael will take him. And then I bring him into here, get him into his like sleep sack and things like that, and get him down for the night. So that tends to be our routine. It's nothing like crazy at the minute. I think when he's like maybe he's another few weeks older, I'll get a lot more intense in terms of routine, because with Auburn I was routine queen and I found that it worked perfectly. So I'm definitely wanting to do that again with Sin, you know, routine throughout the day and night. I think babies need it, I think mums need it. So yeah, I'll definitely be working on that, so I'll update you once we have a routine in place with what's going on there as well. Essentials for the first few weeks as a new mum. So essentials for me are just plenty of short sleeve vests. Baby grows, the zip up baby grows are absolutely amazing. You don't need the ones at the bottom. I found it's been absolutely fine to just unzip it. I don't take his arms out, I just pop his feet out the bottom, and then it's just so easy to zip back up in the middle of the night for nappy changes and stuff, and even during the day. Swaddles, I find that swaddles are really good for newborns. Saint loves being swaddled, and I think that's why he loves this docker tot. So this is good throughout the house. I don't let him sleep in this during the evening, like the night times or anything. I only let him sleep in it when I'm watching him. But he does like that kind of like tight feeling of being like cuddled in. So yeah, zip up onesies, obviously nappies, milk, oil, coconut oil. Sometimes a lot of time when babies are born they have quite dry skin. Sainty had really bad dry skin, so I would smother him in coconut oil. The reason they say coconut oil is just obviously it's natural ingredients, so if they do happen to put their hand in the mouth or anything like that, it's not going to harm them. But yeah, I will actually do like a full-on must-haves, like newborn must-haves with things that I've actually used obviously throughout the first few weeks of Saint being here. So that I'll do like in a separate video where I'll like really think about obviously day to day what I've been using, because off the top of my head it's hard to remember. So I will do a full video on kind of like newborn must-haves. Your signs after your successful sweep. So my signs were basically just the tightenings getting stronger. Obviously I felt the difference between Braxton Hicks to the tightenings, and my stomach became more painful versus you know, like just a daft tightening. And then obviously my mucus plug come away and it just progressed like naturally like that. That was that question. Let me just go to... Okay, I had some more here. Such a happy family. Oh, so sweet. Okay, so another question I've got here is, have any friends or family treated you differently since being pregnant and having kids? I will say you definitely know who your friends are when you have a baby, because obviously you're not available to go on nights out as much as you used to be. You're not available to drop a hat to text people back all the time. You know, you might look like you're available, you're living the life or whatever, but if people can't understand that, you know, things are different now, then that's their loss. So I definitely, yes, the odd people I've drifted apart from people in terms of friendships and things like that, but it's also made the friendships that I've got like twice as strong. Everyone, so it's now a whole different month since the last clip that you've seen, so I do apologise. This video has been like the longest winded video known to man, but I just didn't want to leave the video on that end because my camera died, and then mum life took over, distractions happened, so I'm literally just sitting down to film it now. Since now 10 weeks old, so it's just getting ridiculous now beyond a joke. But I thought I'll just come on, answer the last few questions that I had, and then get this video up for you because I know so many of you have been asking me for it. So here we go. If I repeat something, I'll try and edit it out, but if I've already answered the question before, but I'll try and remember off the top of my head which ones I hadn't answered. So, top tips for a first time mum. I've got this one quite a lot and I don't think I've answered it already. So my top tips really for being a first time mum, what tips do I have? It's a hard one because what I will say is you just don't know how you're going to react to being a mum. I know this time my experience has been a lot more chilled, a lot more calm. I felt like myself a lot quicker, versus with Orban, my anxiety was terrible. I didn't like anyone feeding him. I didn't want anyone holding him. I wanted to do everything myself, but then that like obviously led to like exhaustion. So my advice would be to obviously listen to your body and listen to your emotions and how you're feeling. Talk to someone if you are feeling overwhelmed or tired, and accept help where it's given as well. I think, you know, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves now as mums to do everything ourselves. We want the house clean, we want to be still, you know, cooking tea, we still want to look good, we still want to, you know, be there for our husband, be there if you've already got kids, work and all that good stuff. But it's like, you've now got this little tiny human to look after as well, and it is tiring. So my advice would be, don't be so hard on yourself. I know it's so easily said than done. Accept help where, you know, if it's offered, even if you have a parent or a friend or family member that maybe could come around and watch the baby for an hour while you get some sleep, if the baby's like a bit of a, you know, nightmare at sleeping. And for me as well, getting into a routine sooner rather than later really helped with Orban, and I intend to do it with Saint. To be honest, he's been that chilled of a baby that I haven't felt the need yet to do a strict routine, but I've noticed that he's starting to do things around the same time, have the same amount of milk at certain times, he's napping around the same time, so I feel like that will soon come into a routine. But for me, as soon as you could get into a routine with your baby, I feel like it helped me mentally, helps the baby because they know what's coming, they know the same signs that are coming. So routine is key. So as soon as you can get them into the age, which I normally say around 3 months, but I think you can do it a bit sooner personally, but you know, don't come for me, mum, please. They normally say from around 3 months that you can start like quite a good routine. I think my other advice would be to trust your gut as well. I think sometimes, especially as a first time mum, a lot of people that have had children like before you, parents, grandparents, like aunties and uncles, friends, anyone might want to give unwarranted opinion on a lot of things that you're doing. So for my advice would be to trust your gut. You know your baby better than anyone. Even if you're a first time mum, you don't have a clue, you know that baby, you know when something's wrong, you know when, you know, I don't know, they're unsettled, you just have that, you'll just know. So trust your gut. If you want to use a dummy, use a dummy. If you want to bottle feed, bottle feed. If you want to breastfeed, breastfeed. It's entirely up to you. It's your body, it's your baby. So trust your gut. Do your own research and trust your gut. So my biggest tips and advice is to get rest where you can, accept help from people where you can, trust your own instincts, and try and get your baby in a routine as soon as possible. But other than that, it's literally just like we all learn as we go. I'm still very much learning. and I feel like you're never ever done learning when it comes to being a mum, because it's always something new. How did your second labour compare in length, like shorter or longer? So my second labour was definitely shorter.
Delivery for you.
Oh baby, oh thank you.
Welcome.
You want to say hi? This is my oldest one, Arbin, isn't it?
I like it today.
You got kapunk. Sorry about that. So, next question. Did you do hypnobirthing courses or anything, or just push? I'm due in May and have no idea. So, congratulations to that person, because you'll be a mummy this month. So I did hypnobirthing classes with my first baby. I feel like it made me feel a lot more in control, like I knew what was coming, I knew what to expect. But unfortunately it didn't go to plan with me, because I did have to be induced. So everything was drawn out really long. My birth plan kind of just went out the window. And it just made me realise that really I felt more comfortable just kind of taking it as it came versus having like a set birth plan. So this time I didn't do hypnobirth and I just followed my body really. My battery is saying that the camera's going to die again, so I'm just going to conclude it there and end on a high. I will do another question and answer if you want me to, so if that's something you want to see, then please obviously let me know in the comments. But I hope this video was good for you. Congratulations and good luck if you are due your baby soon, and until next time, I'll speak to you soon.